Well, the stump ramp is getting a new home. So as you can see, I've moved this over here in the woods. It's kind of on the access trail that I had built last year. Just a little bit of a shorter way to get out to the woods here. And so I wanted to get this out of the front yard anyway, just to kind of get it out of sight, out of mind. Maybe nobody would steal it again. See one of my other videos for the story on that. So as you can see, I've kind of piled up a bunch of wood like it was before. I'm not real happy with it. It's kind of unstable. And I was never all that happy with this jump in the first place. It was kind of steep and kicky and not all that much fun to ride. So after trying to smooth it out with just more wood, I've decided I'm going to try a completely different approach. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those two longer pieces and I'm going to kind of trim off the end, screw them into the stump itself, and then just basically use those as beams to put some planks on. And I'm going to try to make the planks out of the wood that I've got here and maybe some other wood that I have cut recently. Both just for fun and because, you know, this is kind of a natural feature anyway, so it'd be nice to not use lumber. And also because lumber is stupidly expensive right now. So lots of good reasons. I don't know if this wood is going to work well for this at all. I have no idea what kind it is. Maybe you know. I don't, but we're going to give it a shot. If it falls apart, well, it's going to be held together with screws, so we can always take it apart and redo it. So, more details about what this is. So as you might be able to see over there, there's kind of a little mound on the side of the trail, and ever since I saw that, I've been thinking hip jump. It doesn't work real well as a hip jump by itself because it's just not quite big enough. I mean, if you really work at it, you can pop off of it and make a little bit of a hip out of it, but it's not quite what I was hoping for. But I'm thinking that it could work really well as a landing for the stump jump. So that's the plan. I guess the first thing up is going to be trimming off the end of these pieces of wood here so that we can kind of get them to fit nicely up against the edge of the stump, either on the side or the top. I'm not sure yet which one I want to do. So we'll see how that goes. But that will be the first step. Actually, the first step will be getting all of this wood out of the way. But next step will be trimming the beams and then getting them put in place. Okay, so I'm here looking at these two pieces of wood. I'm a little concerned about this rot here on the end of this one. There was a bit of bark left on this piece for some reason, and so as you can see, that does cause rot. So that's a nice confirmation of everything I've always heard. However, the nice thing about this end is that it's already kind of narrow down here. So I'm thinking what I might do is just try to cut out some of the rotten bits and then just trim this down a little bit more so that I can get one of the lag screws through it. And then the rest of it is all pretty flat. I mean, obviously there's a little bit that I'll have to trim off, but I think that might be pretty usable. Then this other one over here, this one is not quite as straight as you can see, which is unfortunate. But it's all right, kind of looking down this side. I think I can make that work, although the crack is obviously not ideal. So we'll see how that works. But I'm hoping I can make that work. So, in fact, I may end up actually cutting off most of that crack because I'm going to have to trim, you know, quite a bit of thickness off of this in order to get a screw through it. Because I only have 2.5 or 3 inch screws. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And I guess next up is just the cutting. Alright, well, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I decided to try just splitting this. We'll see how much I regret that, because I did make the crack a little bit worse. But it did a nice job of cutting this off. And the other one is also looking nice and thin, so I should be able to get screws through that. And so now I actually need to move that pile of wood so that I can get these attached to the stump. I guess the one other thing I need to figure out here is the angle So I'm thinking, right now I think the stump is actually kind of tilted that way, just because of the way the ground sits here. I don't really want that. If anything, you know, on a hip going to the right, I want it to be tilted slightly that way. So I probably need to dig in the bottom a little bit and figure out exactly where I want these faces to fall. Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that, because, like I said, I'm trying to kind of use the existing slope of this thing, because that was part of what inspired me to make it a ramp in the first place. So, yeah, I'll have to think about that, and we'll see what happens. Alright, well, they are on. This one's pretty nice and solid, even with just one screw in it. I'm doing one screw for now, just so that I can adjust the angle a little bit if I need to. This one I'm a little bit concerned about. There's a bit of movement there. That'll probably go away once I have rungs on it, but we'll see. I might try bracing them from underneath, just so that they're not completely hanging off of the screws. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. Back up here, you can see I kind of decided on that angle. So you know, you'll come off the ramp and kind of hip over onto the side there. I don't know if this is the right place, but one of the nice things is that this is freestanding. So even if it's not quite the right place, I can adjust it later. So we don't have to get it perfect. Alright, so the next thing I think I've got left to do is to try to split up some wood. This stuff is full of knots, so I'm not entirely sure that I will want to use that for the rungs. I don't know if that's going to split well enough to be usable. I'll give it a shot. I do have a couple of pieces here that don't have quite so many knots in them, or the knots are like right on the end, so I can probably make it work. But we'll see if that stuff works or not. I do have more firewood, so if this doesn't work, I have other options. So let's give it a shot. Alright, well, I'm not sure this is going to work, because I split this nice, wide, flat piece. Looks like it should be nice. Unfortunately, it's quite twisted. Trying to get you where you can see. So there's no way it's going to sit flat across there. So I think I'm going to go find some other wood, see if that works any better, and if that doesn't work, we'll try plan B. Alright, well, I have a plan. It's not a good plan, but it's a plan. So splitting the wood was not working. It's all too twisted. It doesn't split flat enough to be usable for this. So instead, I've got a whole bunch of these little, like, 2-inch branches, and by just shaving off the ends a little bit so that they're flat, so that they'll sit nicely, I have a pretty decent base for a platform here, I think. We'll see how it works. This could be a complete disaster, because I haven't seen a whole lot of stuff built like this before. And there's probably a reason for that, but, you know, I'm going to give it a shot. And if it goes badly, again, it's just a bunch of screws to take out, so, oh well. Except for the broken drill bit there, but we won't talk about that. So, as you can maybe see, it's getting dark here. I'll get as far as I can tonight, and then I'm going to have to call it and come back another day. Alright, got it done with just a little bit of daylight left, so I'm pretty happy with it. It seems to be nice and solid. We'll see how it holds up. Like I said, there's probably a reason you don't see too many features built like this, but, you know, it's going to be a learning experience either way. So I am not going to try to ride it as a full jump. For one thing, there's a tree there that I need to take out, and a little bit more brush right there. However, what I am thinking is I can probably roll off the end of that and just kind of roll out of it. And the reason I'm not going to try to jump it is recovering from a sprained ankle that was not related to biking. So in the interest of not setting that back, I'm just going to take it easy tonight. But I think this should roll easier actually than the previous stump ramp did, because we've got a hill on the back side of it. So we'll see if I'm right, and maybe I'm going to go into the brush over there and kind of make a fool of myself. But hey, at least you'll get to watch. Okay, that was a really bad idea. Alright, so that was a bad plan. Landed sideways right on my ankle. It was fine, so at least it's healed, but yeah, so that might be all I do with that tonight, because although there is a hill on the other side that makes the rollover a little bit easier, it also stops your front wheel and kind of kills your momentum. So yeah, we'll come back to this another day, give it a proper test ride, make sure that it's actually in there in the right spot and everything, and we'll have some fun with it. Alright, until then. Whoops, very nearly ripped safety glasses. Alrighty, so it's been a while, as you can see. Kind of grown up. So yeah, various things have kept me from coming back to this project. I have been riding it. It's not great. As you can maybe see, the tire tracks kind of have to go at an angle to where the actual jump is in order to get back onto the landing. My goal was to have this be kind of a hip so that it would naturally send you that way. However, I think that the end log actually, if anything, might be slightly tilted that way, which is obviously not helping things. You can see that I intentionally did mount this side lower than this side in an attempt to, you know, make that hip shape. So it's not riding quite the way I wanted it to. I did bury the ends of the logs down here, and that made a huge difference in how this felt. I think part of the reason that my front end kept dropping when I would go over the jump was that my front end was going off that just as my rear wheel was hitting that first cross log there, and so it was kind of pulling the front end down. So getting rid of that step at the bottom has made a huge difference. But what I want to do tonight, get my finger out of the way, is maybe try to just tilt that log very slightly so that maybe this rides the way that I intended it to, and you're not having to take weird lines off of it. So all I'm going to do is just move the log part of it out of the way, shave off a little bit of dirt underneath so that it tilts some, and then we'll give it another shot. Alright, it's getting super dark, so I don't know how much of this we're going to be able to see, but that is a whole lot more what I was looking for out of this. Yeah, it's not focusing. So I'm going to take a few runs at it tonight just to see how it rides, but I will come back when it's a little bit lighter out to do a full test ride and a wrap-up. Alright. Alrighty, so once again it's getting kind of dark here, just like it was last time. In fact, it was dark enough last time that I don't know if any of that footage will turn out, so you may or may not have just seen it. If you didn't see it, what we did is we just kind of tilted the whole jump a little bit. We just regraded the ground underneath the log there a little bit so that there's a little more tilt in the direction of the hip. This is supposed to be a hip jump. In fact, I call it the hip bone because of all of the bones over in this part of the trail. So, it still doesn't quite feel right. It feels better, but my theory on why it still doesn't feel right is if I back up down the trail a bit here, what you will see is that the jump is pretty much right in line with the trail. In fact, it might even be pointing a little bit that way. And really, I feel like a hip jump should probably be more kind of in the middle of the turn so that you're already leaned over and You know, it's kind of just a natural progression as you go off the jump. So that's still really not the case. So what I think I want to do is just take the base here and slide it that way slightly. And that will force you to come in at a little bit of an angle, and then hopefully it'll be a nice smooth corner, and the whole thing will just kind of feel the way that a hip jump should, as opposed to right now where you have to take this weird diagonal line up the face so that you actually land where you need to and don't hit that tree back there or that one right there. So even though it's getting dark, this shouldn't take long. Hopefully we'll get a chance to ride it while it's still light, and we'll see how it feels. Alrighty, I think that angle looks much better. I have no idea how this dirt is going to hold up down here that I kind of tried to mound up into a little ramp. It's super, super dry here, so nothing is really packing. And maybe you can see as I step back down the trail here again, there's at least a little bit more angle to it. So here's hoping that it feels good. Let's grab the bike and give it a test ride. Alrighty, well that second one was a little sketchy, but I'm pretty sure that was all rider error. Not that that will surprise you. So I actually think that the jump itself is riding a lot better now, and I think I'm going to be happy with this. But I'm going to give it a few more tries and see if it keeps feeling good, and then we'll wrap this one up. Alright, well I've ridden it a bunch more times and decided that if sliding the approach that way a little bit was good, even further would be better. And you know what? It was. So it feels really good, especially if you can really nail the line into it. It's a whole lot more flowy with the corner than it used to be. There's no more feeling like you're kind of cutting the jump or anything like that. So this is fantastic. I do think it brings up kind of an interesting point for novice trail builders. A freestanding obstacle like this gives you a lot more flexibility as far as playing with lines and placement and stuff like that. It's entirely possible that at some point I'll get good enough at this that I'll actually want to move it back a little bit from the mound that serves as the landing over there, because maybe I'll be over jumping it. I'm not yet, but it could happen. So having this be a freestanding obstacle, basically, I mean, a little bit of dug in on that corner, but for the most part, I can pick this up and move it anywhere that I want to. Makes it really, really easy for a novice trail builder to experiment, and I think that's actually really valuable. So, I'm very happy with how this has turned out. I think it's going to be really fun to ride. It gives me a reason to actually ride this trail, which before I didn't have. It was pretty much just an access trail to get back here, so that's also fantastic, and it'll give me a chance to work on my hip jumping skills, because I'm not very good at them. So, great project, really happy with how it turned out, and thanks for watching. Oh, and the dirt did indeed compact down a bit and leave a gap right there, but it still feels good, so who cares? Ah, shoot. Alright, well, got it done just under the daylight gun, so that was terrible.